So it appears that we're going to be able to talk about the Deshaun Watson transaction today. There are a couple of tea leaves out there already. I know Jay Glazer said yesterday that the expectation was that it could have possibly happened as early as last night. There are reports out there that Deshaun Watson and the Saints have met for a second time. That meeting apparently happened last night. We have the Saints already clearing cap room. That might indicate a move before a move. Aaron Wilson of the Pro Football Network says the Browns are no longer contenders for Deshaun Watson, and the race is down to the New Orleans Saints, who are clearing cap room presently, and the Atlanta Falcons, who presently have the greatest quarterback in franchise history on their roster.
We're assuming that Deshaun Watson is calling his shot here, correct? We had heard with the no-trade clause that
he can call his shot, yes.
He wanted to go to Miami, but I do think that it is possible that people are not understanding what's happening right now when they think of Deshaun Watson is conducting in-person meetings with teams. Please do not believe that that's because teams need to know what he's all about. It's because Deshaun Watson wishes to meet with them, has a no-trade clause, and will call the shots on whether he plays for New Orleans or Atlanta. And those two teams are now vying to get in the Deshaun Watson game as he interviews them, not the other way around.
He's sizing them up. You're right. It's interesting. Deshaun Watson, not only will he get what he wants, which is out of Houston, he will get to choose the team and the city he wants to play for, which is kind of fascinating, and I think probably rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
But just so you understand, Cleveland, it can be seen as damaging its relationship with Baker, whether they decided to move on from him or not. They made it clear in the flirtation with Deshaun Watson, this is done. I just want you to know, I want you to notice the power influx of when we started down this path, Deshaun Watson, one of the first quarterbacks ever, prime value, saying, I will play where it is that I want. I will do everything that I want. And then these allegations appear. And now that some of them have been diluted by the lack of a criminal investigation, here we go right back to Deshaun Watson reasserts his power, and the seismic after effects are Cleveland gets knocked over at its position, and the most prominent quarterback in the history of the Atlanta Falcons and the franchise of Michael Vick is saying, we will welcome this cast off and we will replace our greatest, our former number one pick to move into the future with a guy who's calling the shots here.
I'd also imagine the Texans want him out of that conference. I would imagine.
Well, the vast majority of the teams involved were NFC teams, but it had been reported that if you got to the stage where you were meeting with Deshaun Watson, the trade was pre-approved. That the Browns only got in that room because the Texans were willing to do that trade. And it's been reported by beat writers in Houston and in Cleveland that Baker Mayfield was not a part of that trade. The optics right now do make for a lot of people laughing at Cleveland's expense. You burn this bridge. But I've been telling you guys for months, Baker Mayfield has thrown his last pass in Cleveland, Deshaun Watson or not.
It's astounding that Deshaun Watson is so good, so great, that he has the leverage despite the weight of 22 or 23 civil suits for something as tawdry as this. He still has all the leverage.
To me,
he's got a contract.
Stugotz, but to me, the symbolism of what is happening here is breathtaking.
I agree.
Just watching, the league cares about women, right? Right?
Well, they say they do.
Right?
It should be noted that the New Orleans Saints have a woman as owner. And that franchise, the lockdown and pandemic may have made you forget about this, was embroiled in a pretty hefty controversy of its own, providing football team resources to the Catholic Church in an effort, allegedly, to cover up horrible sex crimes. So
by priests.
Yeah, not a great look for this franchise all around, but they do have a woman as an owner, which if the NFL was trying to sports wash this a little bit would probably come into the narrative.
My point is that with this is the test case, Stugotz. Allow it to be forevermore known if you were not clear on this. It's business first, and do you help me win? And the collateral damage of that, no matter how many happy endings there are that are unwanted, The thing that matters, let it be clear to you and never questioned again, that a man who is now known, smeared and stained with the assumption that he actually did that. We can argue about the degrees of sexual crimes if you want, but it seems pretty clear, given the number of allegations, that the trade on the soul of your morality is being made in exchange for, well, he helps at a position in the business that we really need.
In the interview process, do you think Deshaun and his team is weighing the fact that Gail Benson is the owner of the New Orleans Saints?
Yes.
In terms of optics, this is...
I also think that he's choosing black cities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he is from the South. In fact, that's why Arthur Blank, who it's been reported remembers Deshaun Watson fondly because he came to some of their youth camps and was a ball boy of some sort. Still very, very odd for a franchise to go in this decision. But I think if you're Deshaun Watson and his team, you're looking at the ownership situation. That is certainly a check in the pro column.
Is it assumed, Mike, that any team he's traded to, that team's quarterback is going back to the Houston Texans?
No.
Would Matt Ryan go back there?
I would not assume that because I just told you it was reported that Baker Mayfield was not a part of
and
that.
And Baker's done.
Baker is done in Cleveland. Yeah. That if you weren't sure of it, if you didn't want to take me for my word, I think that the Baker Mayfield message and how the Browns went about the Deshaun Watson chase should solidify it. But that decision was made before, and anything that you saw otherwise was just trying to keep things pleasant for them during the negotiations.
When we talk about quarterback carousel, as you see Von Miller to Buffalo, as you see Chandler Jones to the Raiders, the next, and as you see also, Washington has to scramble because I know that you know that these positions are important. But when you talk about the centerpiece of a city, of a region, of a sports town, of an economy, there is a lot of jockeying that ends up with, Washington wanted Russell Wilson, but has to settle for Carson Wentz. Heineke, don't want to, that doesn't represent change. That's not hope. I'm not going to be able to traffic. Now I can do what Indianapolis tried and failed. We'll refurbish Carson Wentz. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, the two who will now go into the stream of teams that don't have a quarterback that will try and refurbish one, top of the food chain, Matt Ryan becomes the next one who's available, and then it's Baker after that, is it not? Or is there someone else out there now that some desperate team will try to refurbish Matt Ryan or Baker Mayfield?
Maybe Jimmy G?
Jimmy G is still out there. Yeah. There's like some weird timing on the league year too with Jimmy G, which might explain why we haven't seen a move there. That's expensive and trade, right? Because Matt Ryan becomes less expensive the moment that Deshaun Watson chooses there.
Of course.
Right. I don't know if they'll find a trade partner to take on that contract of Matt Ryan. The cap hit is nasty on Matt Ryan. I'm not sure if he's available. Something like this might force Matt Ryan to be like, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. And I think it's time we move on. Baker Mayfield obviously has been available. This is going to be a hell of a musical chairs year for starting quarterbacks moving cities because this isn't regarded as a very good draft class. Malik Willis is probably the top prospect in the quarterback draft, and he's looked at as a mid-first rounder right now presently. So
I think that's why the Steelers went out and got Mitchell Trubisky because they had picks in the first round, but the quarterback class is not very deep this year.
Yeah, there's like 4 first-round quarterbacks projected, but none of them is a guaranteed top 10. It's like they all have faults. You don't see the franchise quarterback here, that's for sure.
I know we love to talk about quarterbacks whenever it is we can talk about quarterbacks, but it is the NCAA tournament. We have to update our tournament, and Chris Cote, presented by Sheets and Giggles, is someone who has a controversial...
I love that.
He's got a controversial take. Our March Sadness tournament is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Drink, and we have to update it. But before we do... Chris Cote, presented by Sheets and Giggles, has a controversial, I think, a shocking bracket opinion.
They're overrated. Everyone wants to fill out a bracket. Everyone gets excited. People send you a bunch of links. You don't end up giving a shit. You don't end up doing well at it. You pick games, you miss games. No one knows anything about college basketball. You're just guessing. I've never won. I never win that shit. It's annoying. No time for it. I'll just watch some games. I'll watch an Elite Eight game. I'll watch a Final Four game. I don't need to do the bracket.
Come
thing.
on, it's fun to have a
It's
bracket.
not that fun. Everyone says it's fun. What's so fun about it? Completely guessing.
Yes, that's the fun part.
Yeah, that's the fun part. Even more fun if you have 12 brackets.
And then then the first round
Yes.
happens. You miss 9 games, and then what? Are you still excited? Like,
Okay, but like one time every 10 years, you do end up somehow getting a good bracket,
Right.
and that thrill and exhilaration is what carries you through the next 10 shitty brackets.
well, I haven't had that. I'm due for that, I guess. Maybe I'll do one this year.
Well,
maybe
you
I'll-
don't. Clearly, you don't do
not
it.
doing
So
it.
you're
Not gonna do it.
I
you're not
do
gonna
one
it.
every year. That's
What
a-
is with your
No.
maybe I'll do one this year?
You
What
just
is with
railed against
barbecue
it.
is
Backing down
overrated?
already.
Maybe I'm wrong. Will you stick to
Well,
a position?
Jess is
And
saying
look,
that I'm
Sheets and
due.
Giggles would want you to stick to a goddamn position. It's not barbecue's overrated. This is my lane. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, don't bring that up.
I mean, we're having conversations. What if I am wrong? I mean, like, I know we're doing a thing.
When
I
you
gotta.
give an opinion, you can't be
What
wrong,
if you're
Chris.
wrong?
Yeah.
What have you learned nothing around here
It's
while
opinion
becoming a
101.
sports
Jesus.
owner who has an assistant?
Boner.
He just backed down. He backs
I didn't
down
back
so
down.
easily.
Well, really did.
While being a buffoon owner?
Look, Jess might be right.
While
Maybe
being a buffoon owner?
a boner. Maybe I'm due, and I will do well this year. I mean, it's a complete crapshoot.
Ah,
That's
the do
point.
theory.
I think the point I'm really making on all this is no one knows anything. I don't give a shit. You don't know who's
I
gonna
don't,
win.
You're absolutely right about that, but that's a feature, not a flaw.
Right.
Like that's the good. That's what I like about March
Like
Madness.
everyone wants to pick their team. Oh, I think this team's gonna make it to the Final Four. You don't know.
No, I think college basketball is hard for a lot of people who are, fans of other sports to follow because it overlaps with like the busiest part of the NFL season, NBA, hockey, like there's college football for a few months. Like it's hard to follow the early rounds. So you kind of start watching around the conference tournaments after football season ends, and then you kind of make your guesses, and it's fun because no one knows, even the experts can't predict upsets, and that's why they're upsets. And maybe Tom Haberstroh and his buddies on Underdogs know better than we do, but it's still fun to just kind of have skin in the game, even though you haven't watched any of it.
Nah.
Chris Cote,
And
that's
now he's
fine.
back
That's,
to
no, that's
right.
the perfect punctuation.
Staying entrenched.
So please,
Nah.
barely, but please put this on the poll then at LeBatard Show.
We have work to do, Chris.
I want all of this to be one word, okay? One word. Are the brackets overrated? I'm annoyed by them. No time for it. No fun. No one knows anything. I don't give a shit. Meh. Just one word. That was your take on the big day in sports right now. It's March Madness, March Sadness, brought to you by 5
And the other
Hour.
option is maybe I'm wrong.
One word.
No, there is no other
One
option.
word.
Yeah.
It's
No
one word.
Give it to him again and do it slowly,
It's
Dan,
all his
please.
takes here.
Right.
It is the brackets are overrated. I'm annoyed by them. No time for it. No fun. No one knows anything. I don't give a shit. Meh.
You got it?
Okay,
I got it.
All right. So
You wanna throw a maybe in there, though?
No. And then the other one is just maybe I'm wrong. Let's go ahead and
Maybe I'm just due.
let's go ahead and update. I'm so glad that Sheets and Giggles gets to sponsor that.
Shiggles.
Boise State is an 8
Oh,
seed.
you're doing March Sadness brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's the one when you got to get stuff done. Pick up some today. For more information, visit 5hourenergy.com.
What are you ha-haing
What is
about?
that?
Guys, that was smooth, man. I didn't even notice that.
You didn't even notice the sponsorship? Boise State is represented by
Boomer Esiason looks like an alcoholic priest who travels the country performing unsanctioned exorcisms.
Boise State is facing Memphis. Memphis from a loaded conference.
Adam Silver looks like an unfinished clone.
It's a classic 8-9 right there.
Has the 16 never beaten a 1 yet still? Is that
No,
still
it
a
hasn't.
thing?
No,
It happened
one
one
time.
time?
Once.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it happened in the women's game, Stanford versus Harvard, a few years ago, Dan. If you listen to a special episode of Off the Looking Glass, which should be coming out soon, you will hear all about the history of that story. The first time it ever happened, Stanford and Harvard.
Georgia State is the 16 seed.
Georgia?
And the
Mm-hmm.
Georgia.
Sing it.
Thank you,
Need
Roy.
it to be done.
You got it.
Love that backup.
the number 1 seed in the West is Gonzaga.
Clint Hurdle looks like a piece of gum that was chewed by Clint Hurdle.
Georgia State, the 16 seed, seed is represented by.
Matt LaFleur looks like the male model sitting in the barber chair in a Sports Clips commercial.
I would take the 16.
Yeah, it's pretty good. 7 seed in the South, Ohio State is represented by. These are the Friday games.
Wayne Rooney looks like a toy soldier.
Loyola Chicago, another loaded conference. Again, from the most loaded of conferences.
Sister Jean.
Loyola Chicago represented by.
Adam Silver looks like he was not born, but molded to his current form and presented to us.
I was born in it, molded by it.
Presented to us.
Villanova.
I'm rooting for Loyola.
Villanova's a 2 seed represented by.
Howie Long looks like a brand new number 2 pencil.
He does.
Yeah.
I still can't get over presented to us.
It's so good.
Howie Long does look like a number 2 pencil, and he is facing from the loaded Urban Meyer looks like an asshole conference, Delaware.
Urban Meyer looks like he negotiates with kids at a lemonade stand.
What's wrong with that?
We really could have an entire, we could do, I mean, Urban Meyer's been so good at this. Like for a long time, he used to be back at a different time when we thought of Urban Meyer differently. He was the dad in the boat shoes in the picture that comes with the frame you buy. And now he just turned into, he looks like an asshole. Brad Stevens is the one representing Illinois in the 4 seed South Conference.
Brad Stevens looks like he isn't quite sure what you mean.
Brad Stevens also looks like the Secretary of Transportation for the United States of America.
I like the other one.
I'm not sure quite what you mean.
No, that's a good one.
Which one?
Beto.
No, it's Mayor Pete.
Oh, that was Beto O'Rourke.
No,
No,
he ran for governor
Mayor
in
Pete.
Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Now
All
he's
right,
running for
my
governor.
bad.
You must be
Senator?
confused now. I mean,
Yeah,
don't remember
both
anymore.
4-letter first names.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Do you all realize it's not just that he checked out after the soup bit and he's done for the day?
He got his promotion in.
Yeah, but it's also, he hasn't quite been the same since he just blurted with a strange sort of promotional Tourette's soup and sandwiches
Right.
on the Greg Cote show featuring Greg Cote. You haven't rebounded since then.
Yeah, but, speaking of that podcast, JT Daly was fantastic. Oh, shit, I said it again. All right, I'm going to put $1 there. No,
Georgia.
he was the best. Thank you, Georgia. Georgia. Always
The
on my
holding.
mind.
Oh, he's back. It's $2.
Beto's running for governor.
Whoa. How about that?
Did moss fly out of your wallet when you opened it?
I'm literally losing money doing this podcast. All right.
You got it?
That kind of thing.
He's right.
Brad Stevens looks like he isn't quite sure what you mean, goes up against Chattanooga.
Sean McVay looks like the hype man at an Herbalife convention who gets so jacked up blood shoots out of his nose.
Hype man.
I want that to win the whole thing. More than
More than this number 1 seed for Arizona.
Matt Patricia looks like the guy who has his high school football number tattooed on his calf.
This is a really good
It is.
rotation in our March Sadness presented by 5 Hour Energy.
Is-
Legit laughing here.
I don't know what happened in the Wright State Bryant game. Was it already played? Was it a play-in game?
Wright State won, Dan. It was
Yep.
before the Notre Dame Rutgers
All right,
game
well,
last
then
night.
Matt
Notre Dame
Patricia-
also won on St. Patrick's
Nick
Day
Wright
at 12:02
State.
a.m. in double overtime. Now they're playing Alabama on Friday.
That was before the tournament started.
Mike Bray said Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Before the madness. Wright State represented by.
Coach K looks like he pulls at his tie and proclaims, "Ugh, that mild salsa's a little too spicy."
That is a strong 16 right there.
Dan
Dan doesn't like
that
it,
one.
so not.
I
Dan
love
doesn't
that.
like it.
If I play it one more time, I think the delivery is pretty good on it.
Coach K looks like he pulls at his tie and proclaims, "Ugh, that mild salsa's a little too spicy."
I mean, you got Adam McKay acting. He really threw in there. Like, he got into character because he's so desperate to be in this tournament where he gave you a little heartfelt, whoa, that
Claims, "Ugh, that mild salsa's a little too spicy."
Oh, you guys are trying to convince me this deserves to be in the tournament. Everybody, McKay too. You guys, I don't think it deserves to be in the tournament.
It's a 16
Yeah,
seed.
but
That was
Mild
great.
salsa's a little too spicy.
he is negotiating against himself. He's desperate to get into this tournament, and he can't get in because this is in.
Ugh, that
Ad lib.
mild salsa's a little too spicy.
I'm rooting for the upset.
Houston is a 5 seed. Houston is represented by
Andy Reid looks like the guy that angrily peers over his glasses at the Olive Garden waiter who stopped grating cheese onto his salad before being told to.
Really good.
that's facing UAB, the 12 seed.
Bruce Arians looks like he just had 9 rum punches at a hotel pool.
How is that a 12? I mean,
Oh, that's Final Four right there.
Chris has torn the studio apart.
There's a legitimate brawl.
He has torn Lewis and Tony apart from one another. So who's slandering Kahachina Lechon?
Lewis is slandering Kahachina, saying it's not that good. And
Oh, my
do
God.
It once a year.
Lewis, are you shitting me?
What did you
It's
say?
all Chris Cody's
Come here,
fault.
come here. What did you say? Say it into the mic.
Kahachina's overrated.
Oh, okay, sit down. No, it's not.
Gotta be kidding me.
Like,
This-
what is happening?
No.
here,
told
Dan?
us to
Tony's
stand
response was the right
arrepentido.
response.
Are you?
Sit your ass down.
This is offensive, Anthony. You were right to react that way. Kevin Durant yesterday. Somebody said Kevin. It was a fairly harmless thing. Kevin, time to take over, and he turned and spit. Time for you to shut the fuck up and sit down.
That was mean by Kevin Durant. Just like it's mean of you guys to dismiss opinions. These are opinions.
No,
opinions.
Stupid ass
They're
opinions.
wrong opinions.
He's attacking our culture there. You cannot say that
He might be wrong.
Kahachina is. He is
That was a
wrong.
first-round draft pick by Tony in the Thanksgiving
Of
draft.
course, what? I'll have it Thanksgiving, Nochebuena, Easter, whenever time you can get a pig and throw it in a
For
Kahachina,
sure.
time to go.
For sure.
Skin is so crispy.
It's one of the greatest things in food. It's not. How can it be overrated if it's one of the greatest things in food?
Ridiculous. Yes, it is.
Subjective.
These are opinions.
What's so great about it?
His opinion's
Chris
wrong.
Cody finally found the thing that tore Lewis and Tony apart from each other. Honestly, I respect it, Chris. Way to go. You're already sowing seeds of dissent. You're a good sports owner.
Why you were fired at ESPN?
We
Laid
have
off.
we have more tournament to get to. We will do so before the end of the show, but I need to spin the wheel of issues here. And here is what is on the wheel of issues, Stugotz. We've got Mike McDaniel. He's bringing in fullbacks. He's getting fullbacks. He's going to change the Dolphins with fullbacks. We've got Joe Buck is on here twice. His last Fox appearance would appear to be The Masked Singer. And
Wow. He was on The Masked Singer.
I feel like that's a step down for Joe Buck.
I mean, after they got Sarah Palin, they kind of, the bar lowered a bit, I feel like.
We about done with this show.
Oh, Dan, would you do it?
The Masked Singer?
Dan, if they asked.
You should do it.
That would be a big stage. Oh, Dan, you should do it.
Yep.
it would be easier to do in costume than it would be to do. Like, I have thought about us performing the musical.
As
and
the Masked Singers.
Trying to
Please
perform,
stop thinking about it.
Trying to perform the musical on stage, and it scares me. And so I asked Michael, lip syncing, can we do it? And he's like, no, it's got to be authentic.
Why? Lip syncing worked out so well for Ashley Simpson and her career on SNL.
You can't lip sync a musical that is a stage production, Dan.
I disagree.
You can only auto tune it live.
I think we'd screw it up more if we.
You would definitely. You having to hit notes and tempo live, it would be a disaster.
But these performances seem to be like I feel like
having worked with you, I know you don't like to show up for rehearsals for stage productions.
Yeah.
That show seems very produced in terms of like these performances. They're clearly lip syncing. They play better versions of it. Like I'm skeptical of this whole show if we really want to get into it.
That is Chris Cote presented
I might
by
be wrong about
Sheets and Giggles. We don't want to get into it. I think you need a new segment. I might be wrong, where you come out strident and like a rodeo.
I think
bull.
I'm right.
Yes, and then at the end you just give up on your own point because you've argued it so poorly on your own behalf.
Spin-off podcast. That's how we fight Nick Wright's What's Right. I might be wrong with Chris Cote.
Counter him. Do some counter programming because he came around here just to grab some of our subscribers and ran off into the distance howling. And now he's trying to milk it by saying he's going to shave his head like Mike Ryan's if he can get past us in the podcast rankings, that he's going to do the fine bomb.
I'm rooting for him.
Also on the wheel of issues here, I said Joe Buck twice, Stugotz. The contracts in general of these announcers.
Mm-hmm.
You have Von Miller going to the Bills.
Right.
You have Colin Cowherd drinking a beer very poorly.
Mm-hmm.
You have Kendrick Perkins saying that Kyrie is the most skilled basketball player ever.
Mm-hmm.
You've got LeBron trailing 3 straight games by 25-plus points, the first time it's happened in his career.
Right.
You've got Kanye suspended from Instagram.
Jesus.
And you've got Paul Pierce for a racial slur toward
It's actually Yeezus.
Mm-hmm.
Toward
Sorry.
Pete Davidson.
The truth.
And Paul Pierce leaving ESPN and threatening us with a sex tape with his IG model girlfriend. Those are your choices.
Wow. I remember them all.
A lot going on.
Remember them all. It's right there on the wheel.
Oh, yeah. I got to see it. Hold on. Let's see where the wheel landed. Paul Pierce leaving ESPN with an Instagram video. How about that?
Oh, so the most recent one. Incredible.
Yep. What do you mean? That's what it landed on. I mean, that's a fascinating story. I'd like to hear more about it.
What were some of the others I just mentioned were on the wheel?
There was 2 Joe Bucks. There was another Paul Pierce. I was keeping track.
No, the Paul Pierce, you already mentioned the Paul Pierce. You
weren't listening. 2 Joe Bucks.
You weren't listening at
Something
all.
about a fullback.
Yeah, fullback Dolphins, Mike McDaniel. But that was many, 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 many stories ago.
It was a Jesus.
So the last thing you heard is where it landed on the wheel. Just the last lazy thing you heard was where it landed.
Well, no, it just happens that the last thing on the wheel to me was the one I had the most interest in. I mean, it's just happenstance.
So what's interesting about it?
Well, I don't know. I want to hear more.
There you go.
But it sounded interesting.
I might be wrong.
Please give me details.
Chris is onto something. This is actually a solid idea for a show.
It's got legs.
No, I might be wrong.
Yeah, I might be wrong about that.
Not the first time.
I love you doubting your every opinion immediately. Like just everything you say at a microphone, you immediately retract it and you think that's your lane. Or you're like a hiccuping, belching machine of takes that you're really not that confident or have that much conviction about. Paul Pierce, Hall of Famer Paul Pierce, a part of coverage as these announcers. This ties me into the other subject. These announcers are about to make big money all over the place as people are getting into the streaming content game. And I wanted to ask you guys, because Paul Pierce had one of these coveted jobs, but it didn't pay him that much. He was making about $1 million a year, which sounds like a lot, but for Paul Pierce to take up his time and to work the way ESPN wants you to work, which is not just every once in a while. It's you've got to earn that money. When he left ESPN, he did it casually and with very little shame because he's like, what do I care if you guys fire me because you don't like what's in my Instagram stories? Like, I don't need your brand. I'm Paul Pierce. Like, these broadcasting jobs are coveted, but not many of these broadcasting jobs are done by people willing to be Hall of Famers who just lend their voice to this stuff. Aikman is the signature that he is. He's a Hall of Famer.
Well, Barkley and Shaq are doing it in his own sport.
But there aren't a lot of these guys out there that are that good and willing to do it, and there aren't that many jobs. Paul Pierce was on the path toward one of them if he had kept doing it, because If you're Scottie Pippen and terrible at broadcasting, ESPN will try you because you're a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
You could be totally terrible at broadcasting. Emmitt Smith, you're a Hall of Famer. You're terrible at broadcasting.
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice, you're terrible at broadcasting.
Dan Marino.
But we will keep giving you chances if you're a Hall of Famer. Paul Pierce was in position to angle in, if he had been good at the studio stuff, for one of these big jobs. And the thing I wanted to ask you guys as it relates to Joe Buck, which I don't think people are exploring here. Why do we know these salaries?
I don't have an answer. Like, it's a great question.
Why does everyone know that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are now going to be paid more than Stephen A. Smith is paid at the network, where Stephen A. Smith, when he signed his contract, wanted to be the highest paid employee in the history of the network? John Gruden made $6.5 million a year. Face and voice of a league, $6.5 million, and those salaries just skyrocketed. Why do you know them when you don't know the salaries of anybody but the players out there? You don't know what coaches make. You don't know what owners make. You don't know what other broadcasters make. Why do you know that the market has exploded this way?
You're setting the market. Agents. Got to set the market.
Well, reporters too, right?
Well,
they're feeding it and leaking it to
just-
reporters. Reporters are not uncovering this. This is
Yeah.
being given to reporters. There's no one doing investigation of these salaries. It is purposely being leaked so that everyone knows what these people are making, using these reporters to get that information out there. Agents using this business and the streaming content game to make sure all of you know, holy shit, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are going to be making 16 weeks a year, once a week, off half the time. That much more than Stephen A. Smith, who's on every show, wandering around to UFC, doing everything there, like Mike Greenberg, while Aikman and Buck stroll in once a week to the network. And this is what it takes to steal them from Fox, because they have such name, these prestiged white men who have run roughshod over. It's a good broadcast, indisputably a good broadcast, but I can get 100 people to do what Aikman does, literally 100.
And it would not affect the ratings at all, not one bit.
I just think it's sad to see so many people get laid off, especially over the last couple of years during the pandemic at a lot of networks and legacy media companies, and then see the talent contracts continue to be the only thing that blow up and expand. And it's great for Kirk Herbstreit that he's getting all these opportunities and gets to do Thursday night football, college game day, Saturday night, primetime ESPN college games. But there are also probably a ton of really talented up and coming.
No, there aren't. Jessica, no, there aren't. Is what they're telling you is no, there aren't. We got to get the old white names. We got to get Al Michaels. He's 80. We got to get him.
I just think it's for the best of everyone to have more people working on these things and to not just have such a
same old people
glut at the top of just the same people over and over again. And Kirk Herbstreit's really good at what he does. I think him and Chris Fowler probably are the best broadcast booth at ESPN, and he has certainly earned the right to be the host of College Game Day and do play-by-play and commentary and everything else that he does. But there's got to be more people out there, and they have to be able to develop talent from young people up, because what are you going to do in 20 years? It's just going to be the same thing. It's going to be 80-year-olds doing college football games. It makes me so upset. So many people I know lost their jobs during the pandemic that were amazing producers, amazing talent, amazing journalists, were writers. They did everything. And a $90 million contract just kind of is wow, that really just flies in the face of all of that.
I agree with everything you just said, but what the networks are telling you clearly is the games are the most important thing, and the things that surround the game are the most important things, and we need to have credibility headed into these games, and so they're trying to get themselves as credible as possible, and the way to do that is with old names who have been doing it for a very long time.
But you don't need the credibility. Football brings you the
I
credibility.
agree, but they think they do.
No, I don't think they do. I think what's happening here is the reason you know the salaries, and I'm going to say the salaries kind of, because that's a big range when you're reporting the Joe Buck details and you're saying between $60 and $75 million. And you have no access to that unless the agents want it known, or the network wants it known, or the NFL wants it known. We will no longer have as framing for our giant American product as the Super Bowl might go to ESPN years from now. You will spend now on putting the framing here. And when those executives get that money and have that money, they don't think creatively. They don't think about
They think safe,
what
Dan.
can I do differently? What can I groundbreak on? No, it's let me give them 80-year-old Al Michaels. Let's give it to them because he's the guy who's always had it. And I'm not disputing how good he is. I'm also here to tell you that if I get a whole lot of hungry 30-year-olds to do that, if I pick one of them soon thereafter, they might not be ever as good as Al Michaels, but it'll be good enough that you won't notice the difference between those people in a way that suggests to you that should be paid $15 million a year and that should be paid $100,000 or $500,000 a year.
But to get new people in, sometimes it requires people leaving the network and some change happening, like a carousel of broadcasters, because now maybe Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson are the number one team at Fox, and that's a nice young crew. You know?
I don't want to hear a new voice out of nowhere with marquee games. No, that's for Sunday 1 o'clock window.
Agreed.
You do that for decades. When it's bright lights on Monday Night Football.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying like go put a 25-year-old on Monday Night Football. I'm saying like this has been the case for decades now that you've had talent contracts. They're exploding within the last 5 years, as I think rights deals have exploded. And instead of the investment being made to build people up and put a really talented 24-year-old on a broadcast at noon on a Saturday, we just get the same thing over and over and over again.
I might be wrong, but it feels like you're projecting the blame on Joe Buck. It should
Not
be
at all. No,
it should be on ESPN. I think Joe Buck deserves that money. Get that bag. I think
He's
Joe Buck is
great at it.
fantastic.
I'm
Yeah,
admitting
right.
that Joe Buck and Kirk Herbstreit and all of these guys are very good at what they do, and they should get paid a lot to do something that a lot of people watch. Like that's how this whole thing works. That's the system that's in place right now. That's capitalism. But I am saying that the last few years at all of these media companies and networks, people have been laid off. The investment has gone away from the, I think, longer form, like actual journalism and work that I think made ESPN what ESPN is. Same with these other companies. And so now to see the money just get put back at the top is a little bit disappointing.
I want big names. I don't care as much about the analyst seat as I do about the play-by-play.
I'm sorry, Stugotz, but she says that she's delivering that message on a show that kind of suffered from that very thing. We weren't part of their plans. Their plans are pay the Mannings, pay Aikman, pay Joe Buck.
Pay the broadcasters.
The podcast industry is not something that we'll prioritize. We'll prioritize game rights. That's where our future is.
That's why I'm saying the networks have told you out loud, like, hey, listen, the games are the most important thing, and the people calling our games are the most important thing. I don't care about analysts, but I do want one of those voices on big games that I watch.
It makes sense to me that you're paying for star power. Why do you want to grow talent? Why do you want to have a 30-year-old who nobody's ever heard of in the hopes that he's going to be groomed?
Nobody's ever heard of him because you haven't like told anyone about him though. Like that, it's not like by accident.
It
you
makes
don't just
sense that you
someone
pay
that people
for,
have heard of.
It makes sense that you pay for star power. And if you're ESPN, why wouldn't you want it out there how much you're paying for these elite talents?
It also should be noted that ESPN doesn't have the spots when it comes to their NFL package to cultivate new talents. They only have one game a week.
Oh, but there are so many things here that are interesting. You've got on their baseball side now, you've got some of the best baseball broadcasters there are, and Carl Ravitch is going to be the guy on Sunday Night Baseball. You mentioned 30-year-old. I'm telling you that if people were listening to the difference between Al Michaels and Adam Amin, they would not.
I love Adam Amin.
But
He's great.
There wouldn't be much of a difference in the quality. So
Adam Amin would get me excited. But there is a different look. ESPN just did this. They may be legacy names to you, but Steve Levy, Louis Riddick, Brian Griese, that was a big opportunity that they got, and it sucked.
I think that comes down to chemistry, though. I don't know if it comes down to them not making enough money to make a good show. I think like
They did it with Jason Witten, and it sucked.
I think it was bad chemistry. I don't think he was really great at what
he
did.
They did it with Tony
They've never gotten
Kornheiser,
it right.
and it sucked.
They've never gotten
They did it with
Monday
Dennis
Night
Miller,
Football.
But
and
paying
it
someone a
sucked.
lot of money, like if you paid Jason
No.
Witten
Paying
$90 million,
still a lot of. They've been working together for 20 years.
Gruden was the one that worked.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yes, Gruden and Tirico were probably
That was a home run.
And I think Sean McDonough also with who
He's
was
excellent.
he in Monday Night with? Was it with Gruden?
With Gruden, yeah.
I
Him
thought they
reacting
were
to Gruden
also
was
good. I
funny.
think Sean McDonough's great. But like the point I'm trying to make, and maybe it seems like I'm taking it out on Troy Aikman and Joe Buck,
No,
which I'm
my
not.
my tone has been bad,
Is that-
and I don't want to be playing devil's advocate for
No, you're-
ESPN, but the ESPN has been one entity that has been taking hacks, and it's constantly blown in their face. And I, for one, as
But
someone
you're not
that's been
taking a hack by putting like white guys in the booth. That's not taking a hack. Like the point is that it's always
Louis
overwhelmingly the same people. Like they put Booger
Booger
McFarland in a
McFarland.
crane on the field.
yeah, but they also put him in the booth, and it sucked.
The Booger Mobile was cool though.
they're
That should've
overwhelmingly
worked.
giving the same
It was blocking
opportunities to the
pants.
same type of people and paying
So
them
what?
an absurd amount of money. That's the point.
It was look, the past 2 years of Monday Night Football have not been enjoyable. I'm honestly putting it on the second TV with no sound because they gave me the Manning cast. I didn't like the Manning cast. If my Browns were on a game and I had to put the sound on, I'd put it on there. I am so happy they made this investment because it makes it infinitely more watchable for me.
If I may, Stugotz, as Jessica brings up the point, and we left there recently in a way that made a noise. Let me just tell you a story. As Jessica says, well, what about the laying of people off? And all of a sudden you're giving Joe Buck and Troy Aikman for a game when we were in the pandemic. I'm sure, well, you certainly remember this, and I'm surprised you don't tie it to some of this because ESPN at the beginning of the pandemic asked for 10% of the salaries back on employees like you and me.
Yep.
And I asked for to pay that money to the crew here that had been with us, camera work and Hialeah and all that stuff, and was not allowed to. So I had to keep paying those people during the pandemic. So you're talking about asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars back, and then you look up 2 years later as everything reopens, you're like, well, wait a minute. There was no hurting for money here. Look, clearly there was money. Like, clearly it was not, like, they asked for your money back, and they just gave a little bit of it for Joe Buck's per diem. Like,
Well, I thought it while it was going on, Dan, but that's corporate. Like, that's corporations. I thought about that while it was
But
going
she's
on. They were
asking-
taking 10% of my contract, and they were building a $22 million extension
no,
in Bristol.
And we are and we're in the privileged position of
Right.
being able to do it. But she's talking about, and what about the people who lost their jobs? There were layoffs.
Yeah, and it's awful. But
like
what ESPN
1,000 people, yeah.
I know,
and
but
it's
what
not
they're-
just at ESPN. This is just one example of something that has happened across corporate America. So maybe my frustration's coming out at one company that's just done the same thing that a whole lot of companies did during the pandemic, taking advantage of workers, getting putting people in harm's way, getting people in the position where they might get sick for less pay, laying people off, and then, who's making all the money? The people at the top, the executives. Billionaires got richer during the pandemic. Well, a lot of people lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, got sick doing their work.
corporate America. I mean, it's a horrible thing, but they're telling you that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are more valuable than 2,000 employees. I mean,
I might be wrong.
me too.